Hi, y'all. The state clearly has been interested in prosecuting Wendi Adelson for the murder of her ex husband, Dan Markel. Now that her brother Charlie has been convicted of murder for hire, there are three reasons I believe the state is more likely to go after Wendi Adelson. Dan Markel was an FSU law professor and a Harvard Law grad. He'd been divorced from Wendi Adelson for about a year when on July 18th, 2015, he pulled into the garage of his house in Tallahassee, Florida, after dropping his two boys off at daycare and hitting the gym for a workout. Before he got out of the car, two hitmen pulled in behind him in a rented Toyota Prius. One of the two hitmen got out, walked up to Dan Markel's car window, and shot him twice in the head. The state managed to track down the two hitmen and the woman who directly hired them, Katie McBanoa. All three are presently in prison. But the state says the money for the hit came from the Adelson family. They wanted to get rid of Dan Markel because he was standing in the way of letting Wendi Adelson move her kids to South Florida to be near Donna and Harvey Adelson, Wendy's parents. The woman who hired the hitman was the girlfriend of Charlie Adelson, Wendy's brother. It took 7 years for the state to arrest Charlie, but just yesterday, 9 years after Dan Markel's murder, a jury found Charlie Adelson guilty on all three charges: murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation of murder. From early on in the prosecutions, the state has made it clear that it believed that Wendy, as well as other of the Adelsons, were involved in the plot to kill Dan Markel. Long before trial, the state called Wendy a conspirator in court filings. Throughout trial, the state talked about Wendy's involvement, even though she technically was not on trial herself. Then, in the closing argument of the case against her brother Charlie, the state made it clear they believed the entire Adelson clan was involved in the conspiracy. They said the players in this case are smart. They've given a lot of thought to their preparations before this and to their explanations after. They said they've really thought of almost everything. Clever TV related alibi for Wendy, and they insulated themselves by hiring Catherine McBanoa as a middleman, walling themselves off like those train cars, only communicating with the one in front and the one behind and having no connection to the one further down the line. In an impromptu press conference after the verdict, prosecutor Georgia Kappelman was asked about whether there would be more prosecutions. She deflected the question, saying she'd be talking to people back at the office and they would be making a decision. But for three reasons, Charlie's conviction and trial make it more likely that the state will prosecute Wendy. The first reason I believe is that the trial made it abundantly clear that Wendy had the most motive of anyone to murder Dan Markel. Although Charlie Adelson was on trial, Wendi Adelson had the most direct motive to kill Dan Markel. After all, he was Wendy's ex husband. He would not agree to let her move. He had forced her divorce and custody lawyer to resign by claiming the lawyer had behaved unethically, and he had moved to have Wendy held in contempt. At closing argument, the prosecutor, Georgia Kappelman, told the jury this, and let me play a clip from the trial for you.
2013, this email references Dan's divorce filing as, quote, his 23-page rant. She then crystallizes the importance of relocation, stating, the most important part of your divorce is relocation, in bold. I sincerely hope that your attorney understands this is your, all caps, non-negotiable. But on June 21st, 2013, Wendy's motion to relocate was denied by the court. Like the heroine in her book, Wendy and the boys were officially stuck in this small stop on the way to what we had previously known as civilization. Wendy worked hard to try to convince you that none of this was a very big deal to her, her mother, or her brother. Her attorney had to get off the case as a result of whatever Danny was filing in court, and he was poised to really take her through the ringer with this grandma motion, the fraud allegation, and the contempt motion that was all pending. Even if he wasn't going to be successful, folks, it was going to be a very unpleasant ride for Wendi Adelson.
So the state believes that Wendy's motive was direct: her kids, her job, the city where she lived. By contrast, Charlie's motive was much less direct. His mom was upset and wanted him to act so her grandkids could move to South Florida to be closer to her. Now, the second reason that I believe the trial made it more likely that the state will prosecute Wendy is that it became increasingly clear that it's hard to explain how the murder occurred without Wendy's knowledge and input. One of the hitmen testified that he was told the hit had to take place on July 18th because Dan Markel was going out of town the next day.
How did the killers in this case know that Dan Markel was planning to leave town the day after the killing?
I have no idea.
You knew he was planning to leave town the next day, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Did you convey that information to anyone?
Absolutely not.
And that was Wendi Adelson testifying at the trial. The hitman also knew that Dan Markel was going to drop his kids off at daycare and then go to the gym and where those were. How could the hitman have known those details without Wendy's input? That's what the state asked. And the final reason that I believe the trial makes it more likely that the state will prosecute Wendy is the sheer speed of the verdict. The jury was sent out late for lunch. They had to eat as well as begin deliberations. Even so, the jury was back with a verdict in 3 hours and 15 minutes. That speed represented a resounding defeat for the defense theory. A quick verdict typically favors the prosecution. It means the jury didn't need to debate and did not need to take a hard look at the evidence. It simply did not buy the defense. So don't be surprised if new charges come down soon. Of course, one really interesting twist, if Wendy is charged, is that she can't use the same defense that her brother Charlie did. Charlie claimed that he was extorted by his girlfriend, who was two-timing him with her ex, one of the two hitmen. He claimed the hitman spontaneously executed Dan Markel in order to extort cash from Charlie. He said he never told Wendy about the extortion. And indeed, Wendy testified that she was surprised by her brother's claim.
Mad? Are you angry that according to your brother's theory, he and your mom have known who killed your children's father since 2014, and you weren't told who it was?
I'm more angry that somebody killed my children's father.
So you're not mad about that they knew this whole time? That's what they're saying.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the
That's
question?
the theory of the defense in this case, is that he's known the whole time. Your brother's known what happened to Dan. Does that make you angry?
I'm angry about so many things, it's hard to
Is that one of them?
separate them.
Well, try.
I'm confused. It's hard to process.
And apparently, according to his lawyer, these killers had threatened to kill your brother's family members as well. Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
And that would be you, right?
It would.
Were you told that a specific threat had been made by the same people that had killed your ex-husband to kill your brother's family members?
I was not told.
Would that have been information you would have liked to know back in 2014?
Yes.
Would you have made the same decision to move down to South Florida, closer to the killers?
No, I would not.
And even after the killers were arrested in 2016, you weren't told that that's what was going on the whole time.
I found out yesterday.
So Wendy would have to have an entirely different theory, presumptively that she had no idea what those other Adelsons were up to. I'd love to see you back. We go live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. to cover the legal cases in the news that everyone's talking about. Please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.